Here is the first video on experiences. What I'm going to do is just read this account to you. I'll do my best to read it. I've obviously read it beforehand. I'll do my best to read it well and then maybe make a couple of comments on it. I want to say just about the person that had this. You know, you're watching these, maybe you're in California, who knows where you are, you're watching these videos. Who are these people having these encounters, right? Who are these people? Well, almost certainly you'll get the wrong idea in your head about who these people are. Almost certainly. Who these people are, they're just normal people. Just if you're in a coffee shop right now, just look around for a minute. You see all those people? It's people just like that. If you came and sat down in this group, you wouldn't be overly impressed with anybody. There's nobody blowing your mind with how special they are. It's just normal people having real encounters with God's power. Okay? And I think that's really important. This whole notion of specialness, this whole notion of, like the devil, let's use that sort of figuratively, but the devil is the one that comes in and says, you're special. You're so neat. You're so wonderful. You're so important. We don't need to hear that stuff, do we? I mean, do our insecurities and pride need to hear that? Does any part of our ego that needs to die need to hear how wonderful it is? So if you're watching these videos and you don't know this community, these are regular people, all right, with just jobs who would bug you sometimes. I mean, just really, I cannot drive that point home enough. Who has these experiences? Regular people have these experiences. That's who. And that's important to know. Never get it in your head that it's for special people, because that's not how this works. So I'll do the best to read this encounter, and we'll see what you guys think. And this person used names, and I don't want the names used. So when I might hesitate for a moment as I find a way to not say the name. Okay. I remember that I had my first healing session with blank on that day. And that was someone from the center. Then that night, during the middle of the night, I was woken from my sleep. My eyes were still closed, but I felt completely aware and awake. I could feel what seemed like a dark square blanket hovering above me. It felt comfortable, safe, warm, inviting, gentle. I recognized it was God. I knew it was God. I remember God showed me something about my future. But then that was taken away from my memory immediately after this experience. I just think that's beautiful. All I remember was it felt like a huge responsibility, but I don't remember any details of what that responsibility is. After God showed me that thing in my future, I said to God, I'm scared. And God said back to me, I know. Just stay close to the path. I said, okay. These words, the words I said to God, and the words I heard back were so distinct and exact. However, they were communicated like a message without words. There were not words spoken, but communicated in thought. God's reply to me when I said, I'm scared. When God said, I know, it felt so comforting and felt like God knows intimately and God knows exactly how I am feeling and everything about me. I remember the energy I felt coming from God. It felt like the most loving, the most gentle, the most nurturing, soft, warm, intimate, motherly energy that was addressing me and that woke me up. It felt like that feminine energy was in front of me or kind of on my left side. But then behind that energy or on the right side, I could feel the most powerful, strong, universal masculine energy. It felt like I could look behind or to the right and see how God has the entire universe and bigger than our universe, all in God's control. I also remember after God said to me, just stay close to the path, and before I said okay, I remember being a tiny bit hesitant. I remember pausing for a tiny moment, because when I said okay, that okay was a huge commitment and I was making it to God. I felt the weight of the commitment when I said okay. After this, after I said okay, I fell right back to sleep. It wasn't until the morning when I woke up that I realized it was an extraordinary thing that happened during the night. In the moment, it just seemed so ordinary and normal. I gotta pause here. You hear this from people a lot. These are quite extraordinary events, right? That's not completely normal. That doesn't happen every day. There are some other ones I'm going to share that are even crazier sounding. But it is interesting that when things like this happen to people, they almost always say it seemed completely normal. They weren't shocked. They weren't freaked out by it. This is really common. It's not all the time, but it's very common for people just to say it seemed completely normal. I just wanted to jump in and say that. In the moment, it just seemed so ordinary and normal and natural. I called blank later that morning and shared with him what happened. I remember telling him I was surprised that I just fell right back to sleep after, instead of getting up and getting out of bed and being so excited about what had just happened. I remember I used the word supernatural when describing the experience to blank. I didn't mean supernatural in the sense of outside of this world, but I was trying to describe it as like the most natural thing ever. It felt like that interaction with God was extremely natural for my soul, like it was the most natural thing ever to have an interaction with God. Okay, so that's the experience. I'm going to editorialize all of these, and I hope that I can be accurate to their experience. But I'm also thinking of the audience and what they might glean from these. So sometimes I'll take a little bit of liberties in what I think they mean for the person. But some of it, the way I'm thinking, is just to give you guys a good picture of what these kind of experiences are for. And in this case, I just want to say that the person we're speaking about, she came across some great difficulty on her path. And the nature of that difficulty is not something I want to share just now. But I just want to say that, I don't know, in Empire Strikes Back, Luke Skywalker goes to study with Yoda, and they're training, and Luke's tired, and they're sitting in the swamp, and Luke asks about this area over here. What is this? And Yoda says the dark side is very strong here. And Luke comes to understand that he has to go over there and face something. And he tells Yoda, I'm not scared. And Yoda says, you will be. And what I want to say about that is that's what happened to this person. They came upon a dimension of the path that became terrifying to them, where they had to face some real darkness. And I would say an unusual amount of it. I don't mean demons. I don't mean that. I can't tell you the nature of it, but I can't, but I don't want you to get the wrong idea. But this experience that this person had, I think, is very relevant long term for her, because she's come up against some very, very, very difficult pieces of her journey where I think it's taken everything she had not to quit at certain moments. And so I think God showing her a future and then removing it, this is so beautiful. So now she knows that she has a future with God. Some, maybe, I haven't asked her this, but maybe some sense of the beauty of it. A little bit of the threat of it, right? A little scary. God shows her this. She remembers that she was shown it, but she doesn't get to remember what it is. I just think that's so neat. And then tells her to stay on the path. And it meant specifically the path that, that we're all doing at the center. And just knowing this person and watching her path unfold, there's no doubt she needed that experience in order to stay on the path. If she didn't need that experience, it wouldn't have been given, right? If she wasn't going to come up against some things that would have made her quit for sure otherwise, then there would have been no need for a vision. So it's not like she's special, so she got a vision. It's just that God wants to save this woman's soul, right? From suffering and pain and heartache. God wants to draw this person into itself and bring this soul into union. And so right at the beginning of the journey, God says, stay on the path. And gives her a very profound, powerful, authentic encounter. Okay, so that's the first video under the playlist experiences. If you have watched this video and you haven't watched the introductory video, go check it out now. It will be entitled Experiences and Introduction. And that'll just give you some framework for how we plug into these kind of mystical experiences, what we do and don't think they mean. And also, if you haven't looked at the Apophaticism 1, 2, and 3, or What About Visions and Dreams 1 and 2 in the playlist Christian Essentials, go check that out also. It'll give you a better understanding of where we're coming from with all of this. Thank you all very much.